My wife wore the same perfume for 5 straight years. Then one random Tuesday, it changed. I didn't say a word. I just started paying attention. 3 weeks later, she came home from book club and hugged me hello. And the perfume on her neck wasn't her old one. It wasn't the new one either. It was a third scent, one I'd never smelled on her in my life. Before we get into how bad this got, if you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe, because this one has a twist near the end that I genuinely did not see coming, and you don't want to miss it. I'm Daniel, 33, and my wife Vanessa is 31. We've been together 7 years, married 5. For all 7 of those years, she wore the same perfume. Chanel Chance, the yellow bottle, the one that smells like grapefruit and something floral underneath. I bought her a bottle every Christmas because it was the one gift I never had to think about. It was just her scent. If I closed my eyes in a crowded room, I could pick her out by smell alone. That's not romantic exaggeration. That's just 7 years of marriage. So when I hugged her one evening in March and smelled something completely different, something warmer, spicier, more expensive smelling, I noticed. I didn't say anything, though. People change things. Maybe she got bored. Maybe a friend recommended something new. I told myself that for about a week. Then I found the bottle, tucked in the side pocket of her gym bag, not on her vanity where every other perfume she'd ever owned had lived for the entire time I'd known her. Small thing. Probably nothing. I put it back exactly where I found it and didn't mention it. Over the next month, little things started stacking up the way they always do once you start actually paying attention instead of assuming. She started taking her phone into the bathroom when she showered. She started saying she was so tired almost every night, except on the nights she went out with her friend Priya, when she'd come home with more energy than she'd had all week. She joined a new gym. She started saying "we" about a coworker named Marcus in a way that used to be reserved for me. I still didn't say anything. I know how that sounds. But I've watched enough of these situations play out with friends to know that the second you confront someone with a feeling instead of a fact, they get a head start on covering their tracks. So instead of asking questions, I started quietly gathering answers. Then came the Tuesday that changed everything. Vanessa told me she was going to a book club with Priya and 2 other women from her building. Said they were reading something about a woman who reinvents her life after 40, which in hindsight is almost too on the nose. She left around 6, said she'd be home by 10. She got home at 11:40. I was on the couch when she came in. She kissed the top of my head, said the meeting ran long because everyone had so much to say about the book, and went to put her purse down. And when she leaned in to kiss me, hello, I smelled it. Not her old perfume. Not the new bottle from the gym bag either. A third scent entirely. Something heavier, muskier, almost masculine in its base notes, like it had been layered onto her skin rather than sprayed by her own hand. I know perfume. Not because I'm some connoisseur, but because I'd spent 7 years learning every version of what my wife smelled like. And this wasn't a mistake in my memory. This was a completely different scent, on a night she'd supposedly spent discussing a book with 3 other women. I didn't say a single word about it that night. I just said, "How was the book?" She talked for 2 minutes about a plot she clearly hadn't fully absorbed, and I nodded along and said it sounded interesting. The next morning, while she was in the shower, I did something I'd never done in 7 years of marriage. I went through her phone. She'd left it charging on the nightstand, unlocked from a notification she'd swiped away. I'm not proud of it, but I also don't regret it, because it took about 90 seconds to understand exactly what had been happening under my nose for months. Texts with Marcus. Not explicit, but not innocent either. Can't stop thinking about last night. You smell incredible, by the way. Is that new? We need to be more careful. D almost noticed the bag. D. Me. Almost noticed. Past tense, apparently multiple times. I put the phone back exactly where it was, face down, same angle, same spot on the charger. Then I went to work like nothing had happened. That afternoon, I called a divorce attorney a colleague had used 2 years earlier. Left a message. Then I opened a folder on my laptop, password protected, and started documenting everything. Screenshots of the texts, time-stamped. The perfume bottle from the gym bag, photographed where it sat. Her location history, which we'd shared for years because she said it made her feel safer driving home late. Credit card statements I pulled up online, which showed 2 hotel charges in the past 6 weeks under a name I didn't recognize at first, until I realized it was a boutique hotel downtown, the kind that doesn't put hotel in a way that shows up obviously on a statement. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I wanted the full picture first. Over the next 2 weeks, I collected more. A restaurant receipt for 2, dated the same night as one of the hotel charges, for a place I'd never been to and she'd never mentioned. A gym membership that, when I called pretending to ask about guest passes, confirmed she'd never actually attended a single class. The gym bag was a prop. The lawyer called back, explained my situation. He asked one question that stuck with me. Do you own anything separately that you want protected? Assets from before the marriage? An inheritance? A business? I told him about my motorcycles. I've been restoring vintage motorcycles for almost 10 years, since before I met Vanessa. Started with a 1974 Honda CB750 I bought for scrap price and rebuilt in my parents' garage. Now I've got 4 fully restored bikes and 2 more in progress, worth somewhere north of $90,000 combined. All purchased before the marriage or with money from my late uncle's estate, which I'd kept in a separate account the entire time. I have every receipt, every parts invoice, every photo of every restoration stage, because that's just how I document my hobby. Turns out, that habit was about to become extremely useful in a legal sense. Document everything the same way you already do, the lawyer said. Photos, serial numbers, purchase dates, bank statements showing the separate funds. If this goes the way you're describing, that garage is going to matter. I spent that weekend photographing every bike, every part, every logbook entry, while Vanessa was at her sister's for what she called girl time. I now assumed that meant something else entirely. 3 days later, I was ready. I didn't plan some big, dramatic confrontation. I just sat her down on a Sunday morning with 2 cups of coffee and asked her directly, "Who's Marcus?" Her face did something I'll remember for the rest of my life. A full system reset, trying to figure out how much I knew before she answered. "He's just a coworker." "Why?" "Because your texts with him don't read like coworkers." Silence. Then the classic deflection. "You went through my phone?" That's such a violation of trust. Interesting choice of words from the woman with hotel charges under a fake reservation name. Her face went white. "You've been spying on me. I've been paying attention. There's a difference. You changed your perfume in March. Then 3 weeks ago you came home from book club smelling like a completely different perfume that wasn't even the new one. Want to explain that?" She actually opened her mouth to argue, then stopped, because there was no explanation that made that detail disappear. That's the thing about small, physical evidence. You can talk your way around texts, you can claim a friendship got misinterpreted, but you cannot talk your way around your husband smelling a third, unexplained scent on your skin after a night you said you spent with 3 women discussing a novel. "It's not what you think," she said, which is, in my experience, the universal sentence people say right before confirming it's exactly what you think. Then what is it? Marcus and I have gotten close. It's not physical. We just talk. In hotel rooms. Her face crumpled. That was one time. It didn't mean anything. The credit card statement says twice, and I have a restaurant receipt from a place I've never heard of on a night you told me you were with Priya. She started crying, which I expected, and honestly, I let her. I wasn't angry in the way I thought I'd be. I was just tired, in the specific way you get when you've spent a month confirming something you already knew in your gut. "I want to fix this," she said. "We can go to counseling. You don't fix a marriage by hiding perfume in your gym bag." I went to my office, came back with a folder, and set it on the table. "What's this?" "Divorce papers. Filed Friday." Her hands were shaking as she opened it. "You already filed? Before you even talked to me about it?" "I gave you plenty of chances to come clean on your own. You chose a hotel instead. She tried every angle over the next hour. Anger, then tears, then a strange kind of bargaining where she suggested Marcus meant nothing and she'd end it immediately if I just gave her another chance. I told her I wasn't interested in being someone's fallback option after their affair got complicated. So that's it? 7 years, gone, because I made one mistake? You made a lot of mistakes. You just only got caught on one of them. She moved into the guest room that night. 2 days later, she moved to her sister's. Update 1, 10 days later. This part gets messier fast. Her mother called me first. How could you humiliate her like this? Filing papers before even discussing it? Ma'am, with respect, she was leaving hotel receipts under a name that wasn't hers while telling me she was at book club. I think discussion happened a long time before the papers did. Silence. Apparently nobody had told her mother the specifics yet. Then came the family visit. Her sister and mother showed up at my house unannounced while I was in the garage working on the CB750. Her sister led with, "You can't just throw away a marriage over an emotional connection." It wasn't emotional. It was 2 documented hotel stays and a restaurant I've never been to. Her mother tried a different tactic. She was vulnerable. Marcus took advantage of her. She initiated the texts. I've read them. She was not a passive participant. They left frustrated, which I've since learned is the standard outcome of trying to guilt someone who actually has receipts. Vanessa herself tried calling constantly for the first week. I let most of it go to voicemail, on my lawyer's advice. The few times I answered, it was some version of the same conversation. She loved me. She made a mistake. Marcus meant nothing. Could we go to counseling? Didn't 7 years mean something to me? I told her the truth once, clearly, and then stopped repeating myself. 7 years meant enough to me that I actually paid attention when things changed. You should try that sometime. Then, the financial disputes started. Her lawyer sent a letter requesting spousal support, half the value of the house, which we owned jointly, and a claim that my motorcycles were marital property since some restoration work occurred during the marriage. My lawyer's response was almost gleeful. Every bike had a purchase date, a bill of sale, and a paper trail showing the money came from a separate inherited account. The restoration work, my labor, added value to property I already owned before or independent of the marriage. Textbook separate property, he said. Her lawyer tried one more angle, that I had emotionally neglected her, driving her into the affair, and that this should factor into the settlement. My lawyer's counter was simple. Neglect doesn't typically involve a spouse hiding a second perfume bottle in a gym bag and staying at boutique hotels under aliases. It's not usually the neglected party who needs the disguise. Update 2, 5 weeks in. The deposition happened, and this is where things got genuinely wild. Under oath, her lawyer tried to frame the affair as brief and inconsequential. Then my lawyer produced something I hadn't even known about. A message from Marcus's actual girlfriend, a woman named Sophie, who had found out about the affair independently and reached out to my lawyer's office after hearing through mutual friends that there was a divorce case building. Turns out, Marcus had been telling Sophie he was working late on the same nights he was in hotel rooms with my wife. Sophie had her own screenshots, her own hotel charges pulled from a shared account, going back 4 months, not the 6 weeks I'd found. 4 months. The perfume switch in March lined up almost exactly with the start of it. In the deposition, Vanessa was asked directly how long the relationship with Marcus had been going on. "A few weeks," she said. My lawyer entered Sophie's documentation into evidence. Text messages from Marcus to Sophie dated 4 months back, referencing V and hotel plans. Vanessa's face went the same shade of white it had gone in our kitchen. I didn't realize it had been going on that long," she said, which is a strange thing to not realize about your own affair. Her lawyer tried to object to the relevance. The mediator, a woman with the patience of a saint, allowed it anyway, noting that timeline discrepancies go directly to credibility. 2 days after that deposition, I got a message from Sophie herself. She wasn't hostile, just tired. She said she'd broken up with Marcus the week she found out, and that she wanted me to know the full timeline in case it helped my case, because she'd been strung along the same way I had. She forwarded screenshots. Some of them included Marcus commenting on a new perfume he'd bought Vanessa as a gift, the same bottle I'd found hidden in the gym bag. It hadn't been her own purchase or new preference at all. It had been a gift from him, and she'd been rotating between wearing it around him and reverting to her original scent around me, until the night she came home and simply hadn't had time to shower before I hugged her. That was the third smell. It wasn't a new perfume at all. It was Marcus's cologne, layered on top of the gift perfume, on top of whatever was left of her actual signature scent. 3 scents at once, because there'd been 3 versions of her life running simultaneously for months. I forwarded everything to my lawyer. He said, "This isn't just helpful. This is the whole case." Somewhere in the middle of all this, Vanessa tried the social media route too, which I hadn't expected from her, since she'd never been the type to post much beyond birthdays and vacation photos. A friend sent me a screenshot of a vague post about loyalty not being what you think it is, and some people only care about their toys, not their marriage, which I assume was a reference to the bikes. The comments were a mixed bag. A few of her friends offered generic support without asking for details. A couple of people who actually knew both of us asked, gently, what had actually happened, and she never answered those. The post came down within a day. I didn't say a word about it publicly. My lawyer had already told me that anything I posted could get pulled into the case, and honestly, I didn't need an audience to feel fine about how things were going. Her sister tried one more approach around week 6, showing up at my work this time instead of my house. Security called up to let me know someone was in the lobby causing a bit of a scene. I went down expecting another lecture and got exactly that. "You're really going to let the bikes ruin everything?" she said. "You could sell one and just help her get back on her feet. She has a job. She has a family. She has a place to stay. She's not destitute. She's just no longer married to me, which is a very different problem. You're being cold. I'm being accurate." Cold would be if I'd let her keep living under the same roof after finding out about Marcus. This is just consequences. She didn't have much of a response to that, and security walked her out without incident, mostly because she wasn't actually causing enough of a scene to need much walking. Update 3, 7 weeks in. The financial reckoning. With Sophie's documentation, the affair timeline was no longer disputable, and it started reshaping every negotiation. Her demand for spousal support fell apart almost immediately, since our state factors fault into some elements of the settlement, and 4 months of documented deception doesn't play well in front of a judge. Her claim on the motorcycles got dropped entirely once her own lawyer reviewed my paperwork and realized there was no realistic path to reclassifying them as marital property. We ended up negotiating the house. I'd put down the larger share of the down payment using proceeds from selling my first restored motorcycle years before we married, which, again, I had documented, because apparently that hobby had quietly been preparing me for a divorce I didn't know was coming. We agreed to sell and split what remained after the mortgage, weighted slightly in my favor to account for the initial contribution. Her mother called one more time during this period, trying a softer approach. "She's devastated. Is there really nothing that could change your mind?" She was devastated about getting caught. I was devastated about being lied to for 4 months while she wore someone else's gift on her skin and came home to kiss me. Those aren't the same kind of devastated. Her mother didn't have a response to that. Update 4, final update, 3 months later. Settlement reached, no trial needed. House sold. Proceeds split with the adjustment for my down payment. No spousal support, given the documented fault and relatively short additional entanglement. My motorcycles stayed entirely mine, all 6 of them, with the CB750 finally finished right around the time the paperwork was signed. Total legal cost came out to a little over $7,000, which felt like an absolute bargain compared to what I'd have lost if I'd stayed quiet and let the marital property question get muddier over more years of shared restoration work. Marcus, for what it's worth, ended up losing both women in his life at once. Sophie left him the week she found out. Vanessa, once the shine of secrecy wore off and the legal consequences became real, apparently stopped speaking to him within a month of the deposition, according to a mutual friend who still talks to both of us. I didn't ask for details, and I didn't want them. Vanessa reached out one final time by email a few weeks after the divorce was finalized. Said she was sorry, that she'd never meant for it to go on as long as it did, that she hoped I could eventually understand it wasn't really about me. It was about her wanting to feel wanted in a new way. I read it once, didn't respond, and deleted it. There wasn't anything left to say that hadn't already been said in a deposition room with far more documentation than either of us probably wanted. A few weeks after the settlement, I ran into Priya at the grocery store, the same friend Vanessa had used as her book club alibi more times than I now realized. She looked uncomfortable seeing me, probably expecting me to be angry that she'd unknowingly covered for those nights. I told her I didn't blame her for any of it, since as far as I could tell, she genuinely hadn't known what was going on behind the cover story. She admitted Vanessa had asked her a few times to just say we were together if anyone asks, framing it as harmless girl stuff, never mentioning Marcus by name. Priya said she felt used once she found out the truth, and for what it's worth, I believed her. We talked for a few minutes about nothing in particular, and it was the first completely normal conversation I'd had about any of this in months. My brother asked me recently if I regretted not confronting her the moment I first noticed the perfume change back in March. Honestly, no. If I'd said something that first week, she'd have had months to cover her tracks, delete messages, come up with a story that would have made the whole thing a matter of my word against hers. Instead, I got receipts, timelines, a second woman's independent confirmation, and a clean legal outcome that left my hobby, my finances, and my sanity fully intact. The garage looks great these days. All 6 bikes lined up, the CB750 running better than it ever has. A 1968 Triumph Bonneville, about halfway through restoration that I picked up for almost nothing from an estate sale last month. Turns out keeping meticulous records because you love a hobby is also excellent divorce preparation, which is not a life lesson I expected to learn, but I'll take it. I've started seeing someone new, slowly, no rush. Met her at a motorcycle swap meet, of all places. She restores old cameras instead of engines, but she gets the appeal of bringing something forgotten back to life. When I told her the whole story, her response was, "So basically, you caught her because you know what your own wife is supposed to smell like." That's oddly impressive. Made me laugh harder than anything had in months. Life's quieter now. No hidden gym bags, no second perfume bottles, no unexplained scents to decode after a book club that ran late. Just me, 6 motorcycles, and Tuesday nights that are exactly as boring as they're supposed to be, which after everything, feels like winning. I still keep the folder from the whole ordeal, the one with every screenshot, every receipt, every photo of every bike logged the weekend I found out. My lawyer joked that it was the most organized divorce file he'd ever seen, better documented than some of the corporate cases he handles during the day. I told him that's just what happens when the same instinct that makes you catalog every bolt on a 40-year-old engine also makes you notice when your wife smells like someone else's cologne. He said I should charge for the paperwork alone. I told him the peace of mind was payment enough. Some nights I still think about that first evening in March, hugging her hello and catching a scent that didn't belong to the woman I married. At the time, it felt like nothing, the kind of detail you're almost embarrassed to have noticed. Looking back, it was the entire case. Every piece of evidence after that point just confirmed what my own memory had already flagged the moment it happened. I've come to think that's usually how these things work. The big reveal rarely comes out of nowhere. It comes after a string of small, easy-to-dismiss details that you either choose to investigate or choose to ignore. If there's one thing I'd tell anyone in a similar spot, it's this. Small changes matter more than we want to admit. A new perfume isn't proof of anything on its own, but it's worth noticing, worth quietly paying attention to instead of dismissing. Trust your senses. If something smells off, literally or otherwise, it usually is. And whatever your version of the motorcycle garage is, the hobby you've kept meticulous records on without even thinking about it, don't underestimate how much that quiet documentation can protect you if things ever go sideways. People ask me sometimes if I ever wonder how long it would have gone on if I hadn't smelled that third scent that night. Honestly, I don't spend much time on it. It happened, I noticed, I acted, and it's over now. That's really all the closure I need. The garage door is open most weekends, the radio's on, and nobody's coming home smelling like someone else's life. That's more than enough for me. That's the whole story. If you made it this far, do me a favor and hit subscribe, drop a comment telling me what you would have done differently, and I'll see you in the next one.